dimensionality.
You got it. Oh, you mean what we talked about
Yeah,
earlier?
yeah, from Brian's internet stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, the last one on there, I got on mine, so.
Gotcha. Brian's email.
Is that for me?
Yeah, yeah, I just don't want to duplicate it.
Got it.
You ready, Wendy? You live?
Yep. Good evening, everyone. I hereby announce that pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the notice which was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall, and filed in the Township Clerk's office on January 5th, 2022. Members of the public are advised that this meeting is being live streamed, and the recordings of this meeting, including public comments that are made, will be posted on the internet and are subject to production under the Open Public Records Act. Mayor Bontempo?
Here.
Mr. Santana?
Here.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Here.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Here.
Ms. Weber?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Wendy. Good evening, everybody. Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please remain standing for a moment of silence to honor our troops, both home and abroad, who work tirelessly to protect us each and every day. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. We are going to kick off tonight with a presentation we've been waiting a long time for many of us. We're going to cover the preliminary hydraulic model for the Wackack Creek watershed. So I think we're going to be able to show. Ben, I'm shocked to see you. I wasn't expecting to see you here tonight. Didn't you tell me Ben wasn't coming here tonight? Wait, I did a double take for a second. Ben, we had this last time, right? You was it you plugged in last time, or was it? And you used Bill's laptop? Vintage. Okay. Katie, you going to present with the projector to the with the
Maybe that monitor
PowerPoint
doesn't
too?
think it's on at all.
You can. No, I prefer. Okay. Okay. It's like it's not getting a signal. Is the input on that, Wendy, correct?
Bill's gonna run and get his, and maybe it will work.
Can we flip the presentation?
Yeah. So Kate, so you're not going to be using the a PowerPoint,
I was planning on if we do bills, I don't have my laptop with me.
but you could use Bill's.
I don't know if Bill has the presentation that we could do it from there.
Okay.
Can you do yours without?
I can.
You can?
Yes.
Then let's,
If we would prefer to. Yes, it's mostly just informational.
yeah.
Okay. Why don't we? While Bill's getting that, why don't you want to come up and sit at the other? So we will flip and we'll go to presentation from our planner, Kate Keller, on the open space and recreation plan.
Okay. And thank you.
Just make sure that mic is on, Kate.
There's a switch at the bottom.
Okay, here we go. Okay, this should work.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Hi, Mayor, members of the Township Committee, happy to be here. So the reason I'm here tonight is just to give you a quick overview of the project that we are about to kick off, which is a comprehensive update of the township's open space and recreation plan. This is, we're really excited to be doing this, and our firm will be leading this over the next probably 6 to 8 months. There's a little bit of flexibility in there, and there might be some requirements from from Green Acres, but that's really what we're looking at. So I just wanted to discuss tonight a few of the background of the plan, why we're doing it, what it will look like, and how the public will be able to get involved. So just as a quick overview, the Open Space and Recreation Plan at its core is an element of the township's master plan that goes through the township's visions, goals, and policies for recreation and open space planning. And the method we do this is really generally established by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and their Green Acres program, which sets guidelines for how these plans should be prepared. And that really includes an inventory and assessment of public and private resources. It looks at how these resources meet the needs of the township, both now and in the future. And then it will offer some recommendations and a multi-year action plan. And with all of these aspects of it, public participation is really crucial for input and feedback along the whole time. So the final aspect of this process, because it is an element of the master plan, is that the planning board holds a public hearing and adopts it as a part of the Township Master Plan. And then finally, the plan can be approved by Green Acres, and once that's in place, the township is eligible for funding opportunities for the next 10 years. So just briefly, just a rundown of how this all relates back to the Green Acres program, is that one of the programs that's run through Green Acres, which is a program of the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, is they have a couple of local and nonprofit assistance programs, and the Township Committee is probably well aware of the impact that these programs have had in Holmdel. And the reason this plan is specifically being prepared is for their planning incentive category, which is one of their local government funding grants. And so once this plan is approved, it basically maintains the township's eligibility for matching grants to preserve land that is identified in here. So that's who establishes the guidelines for how we develop this plan. And the township's a part of this is that you establish the priorities, you establish the actual land. We really look at how it's going to. We prepare how the form of the plan, but it just does have to meet certain guidelines. And so just going to brief overview of what the process is going to look like. It involves updating the inventories, and we work off of some of the past plans. It was last done in 2010. There's also a 2004 plan and a variety of studies that have been done by the Holmdel Environmental Commission, as well as the ongoing recreation and open space inventory that's kept. And so then we look at the present and future needs. We review the adequacy of what's currently here, and we look at new opportunities of both township-owned land and opportunities for acquisition. And then we develop the goals and policies and the action plan. And again, this is all done with substantial public participation. And some of the things that we look at as we prepare this plan, this is really where the township can set their priorities. But we'll look at the location and geographic distribution of the facilities. We look at how different types of parks are provisioned throughout the township. Look at both passive and active recreation opportunities, making sure that there is appropriate recreation for residents, of all ages, all abilities, and all kinds of access. Multimodal connectivity and trails, and everything's presented in a document that's going to have high quality maps and graphics that will allow this to serve the township for the 10-year period or as long as is necessary. And so then, just wanted to briefly touch on how public participation, how we envision that will be managed through this process. There are 2 meetings that are required per the standards, but we have the option to do, as many as we see fit, or however this would work within this plan. So one of this could look like planning board meetings, which would include how the noticed hearing to adopt the plan, but also an introductory meeting there for some feedback, as well as a community participation workshop, which is something that we've had a lot of success with for different types of planning efforts, where you find a time that's mutually convenient for as many people as possible. It could even be a weekend. It can be in a public Place, like in Town Hall, and we really just kind of strive to get feedback on what we've already been working on, as well as kind of see how people react to what different priorities that might be put in front of them. And then, in addition to that, we'll also be we also like to establish a project-specific advisory group that will really guide this process and serve as intermediary between the public, the township staff, and consultants that will all be involved. And this ideally will represent a whole range of interests and expertise. For example, elected and appointed officials, members of the planning board, Holmdel Environmental Commission, volunteers from advocacy groups, different township staff and consultants as needed. So, and that's that organization will be able to meet at regular intervals throughout this process. So then, just essentially the timeline is over 6 to 8 months. Again, might be amended as needed for Green Acres application milestones. But it essentially will be a 4-phase project that we're actually in the process of kicking off right now, just doing some data analysis, background work in our offices. So, we hope to get started bringing this to the public, as that's what we're here for tonight. And we look forward to getting everybody's feedback as we go along this process.
Thank you, Kate. Any questions from anybody in the TC?
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yes.
At the end of the project, you're going to share recommendations in terms of what we need to do. Would it include the financials as well, in terms of how we go about, whether it's purchase, maintenance, et cetera? Are there opportunities for grants and so on? Can you list all those?
Yes, it does explore a lot of that.
Okay, and would include the bonding costs that we need to potentially?
Yeah, it'll look at all the
okay.
It'll provide either different options. You can look at things over a 5-year period, a 10-year period,
Okay,
et
great.
cetera.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kate. When you want to go while he's working on it, you want to go to the consent agenda, Wendy? We keep moving.
Yeah.
So, next is approval of the minutes, Wendy. February 22nd, March 8th, March 22nd, March 28th.
Okay, so approval of minutes for February 22nd, 2022, public session, March 8th, 2022, executive and public sessions, March 22nd, 2022, executive and public sessions, and March 28th, 2022, public sessions.
Move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yeah, I was not here on the February 22nd, so
Yeah, do I need to, one of them I was present, one of them I wasn't, so I don't know if you want to,
We'll put abstentions
yeah,
on the record.
I'll
for
abstain, I don't know.
The meetings
but,
the
yeah.
committee members were not present for.
Thank you. I was gonna say have to do the same, yeah.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. So
Thank
all
you,
the,
everyone.
the minutes have been successfully approved.
We have 4 sets, so it's a little complicated tonight. No problem.
we'll go right to public comment on tonight's agenda items.
Okay, this is a public comment period that is limited to items that aren't on tonight's agenda, including the consent agenda and any introduction of ordinances. Public comments on ordinance for final adoption should be made during the designated public hearing period. In accordance with Resolution 2022-17, public commenters are asked to raise their hand and wait to be recognized by the mayor before coming forward and making public comments. Commenters are asked to state their full name and address before commenting. Public commenters are limited to 1 comment, not to exceed 3 minutes. Comments should be directed to the mayor and township committee. If appropriate, the mayor may direct and recognize a staff employee or professional to respond to comments either at this meeting or in writing after this meeting.
Thank you, Wendy. Any public comment on tonight's agenda items only? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Tonight, introducing resolutions 2022-112 to 2022-121. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes with a note.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Resolutions 2022-112 to 2022-121 have been successfully passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Next is introduction of ordinances, Wendy.
Introduction of ordinance 2022, we're tabling 2022-10, correct? Okay. So 2022-10 is being tabled for further discussion. Ordinance 2022-11 is an ordinance adopting NJDEP Model Noise Control Ordinance. The motion is to adopt on first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press and set the public hearing for April 26th, 2022.
Have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
2022-11 will be published and set for public hearing. The next ordinance for introduction is 2022-12, which is an ordinance amending Section 5 titled Animals, making various revisions addressing free roaming cats. The motion is to adopt on first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press and set the public hearing for April 26th, 2022.
Have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Okay, 2022-12 has been successfully passed and will be set for public hearing. The next ordinance for introduction is 2022-13, which is an ordinance amending Section 10-1.3 relating to uniform construction code fees. Motion to adopt on first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press and set the public hearing for April 26, 2022.
Do you have a motion?
Move.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Impreviduto?
Yes.
Mr. Lucarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Bontempo?
Yes.
Okay, 2022-13 will be set for public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. So I know Matt, I know. I reached out to Jason and he said he gave you the instructions. So Matt, I know it's not as impactful without seeing the maps and all the work you did. Can you go through the presentation and then maybe we could post it on our website tomorrow so people can see exactly what we were referring to? We're going through the slides.
Sure.
Do you need the,
What was the issue with the slide?
yeah, why don't we, if it's okay, guys, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Let's get Matt set up and then we'll reconvene and say at 8:01. Is that all right? Are you ready? Well, let him, he needs the IT guy, is gonna go on the line. Yes.
The guy's gonna help him get it.
Yes, yes. So, we'll do a 5-minute recess, and then we'll, 8:01. What?
I think we got it. Yeah. No, you can't bring it over there. You got it, but you need this. You can't bring it.
So you can check real quick.
You think so? Okay, well, plug your. It worked on mine.
There we go.
Wait, is that yours?
Yeah.
Is that yours? Wait, we got it. Yay. Don't touch it. Don't move. I didn't take it out. I did not. Sorry about that, Matthew.
No worries.
No one unplugged it.
So, Mal, I'll introduce you again. This is a preliminary hydraulic model for the Wackack Creek watershed. You presented to the Holmdel Environmental Commission probably 2-3 weeks ago. I was able to sit on that. It was a very interesting presentation. I really wanted the rest of the TC members to be able to see, as well as the public in the Township Committee forum. So thank you for traveling down here and presenting this to us this evening. So I'll turn over to you, Matt.
All right. Yeah, so as introduced, this is my preliminary hydrologic model for the Wackett Creek watershed. Yeah. All right, is that better? All right. All right, so just put that there. All right, so just an introduction. So I'm Matthew Lacconi. This is my basic contact information. Yeah, this is a link to our website. But I'm part of the Water Resources Program at Rutgers. So it's part of the Rutgers Cooperative Extension Program. So this program is sort of how the university extends out to the surrounding communities of New Jersey. So we're a branch of that called the Water Resources Program. So we focus on water-related issues throughout the state. Our major focus is on stormwater issues like flooding, managing water quality, those sorts of things. So this is just an overview of the Wack Creek watershed. So it varies in elevation from 360 feet to, minus 5 feet below sea level. The area is about, 9.6 square miles, according to the DEP's delineation. As part of developing the model, I developed a different boundary, so that's a little bit smaller, and I'll explain why when we get to the slides that will show that better. And then we also have our annual rainfall in this area is about 45 inches a year. And then below here, there's a table that basically shows the different 24-hour rainfall frequency. Statistically, so when we look at the 10-year storm, statistically, on average, every 10 years, we have a storm that's about 5.23 inches. So we use those to help develop our models. So this is just a map show an overview. I know it's a little hard to probably see on the screen the different watersheds, the different streams. So Wack Creek is made up of Mahoris Brook, Wack Creek, and there's also Thorns Creek that's at the northwest end there. Went a little too far. So basically, I developed both a hydrologic and a hydraulic model. So we're very specific in the world of stormwater about what those two words mean. So hydrologic model involves looking at the drainage basin. So it represents the area of land and how water would fall on it and how much stormwater would run off of those surfaces. So we're able to take a very large watershed, split it into a bunch of smaller chunks that we can figure out more refined values for. So you get an idea of how much, the volume of stormwater that runs off, how quickly it runs off, and what the peak is during that storm, what's the worst amount of, the most amount of runoff flowing through the stream at one time is. So this was developed using HEC-HMS. It's a program developed by the Army Corps of Engineers that's well used in the engineering world. A hydraulic model focuses on the actual stream network. You're able to take the watershed, all the streams in the watershed, create a bunch of cross sections, so you can kind of model how water flows through that through the stream and the floodplain areas. So this gives you an idea of what the elevation in the stream is, how much water is in there, how far it extends out into the floodways, and it also can give you an idea of how likely a bridge is to flood during those events. And this was also developed by with HEC-RAS, which is a program developed by the Army Corps of Engineers as well. So in order to create a model like this, it requires a lot of data, some of which is easily accessible, some of which is measured data. So a lot of the data on the left is just basic information about, we need information about, how developed is the land, what kind of soil there is, how much impervious cover is that prevents water from soaking into the ground, so we get an idea of how much water runs off of the surface. And then we also need a bunch of data about rainfall, what the cross sections of the stream are to figure out how water is going to actually flow through those. Okay, so the next slide here, I just want to highlight the development within the watershed. So the pink areas are everything that's designated as urban according to DEP's classifications. So you can see a large majority of the watershed is developed. Everything kind of in the stream corridor is, wetland areas, and then, in the south east area, there's some forested land still. That's the blanking on the name of the park, but that's the park down there. So why is this important when we're talking about stormwater, right? So you have this basic idea that as you increase development, you tend to see more stormwater runoff. And this is mostly due to the fact that we're increasing the amount of impervious cover. So, impervious surfaces don't allow water to soak into the ground. So things like streets, rooftops, things like that. So those will generate more stormwater runoff. Which can lead to more flooding events and, worsen water quality. So those are the things we're trying to resolve. So this is highlighting the HEC-HMS model. So again, I know it's a little difficult to see on these screens, but each of the little black outlines represents individual subbasin within the entire watershed. So the one boundary, again, I know it's a little tricky to see on these screens, but this highlights, the delimited area is the area in black, and then the red line kind of represents what DEP's boundary is. So this has to do with the fact that DEP's boundaries were created with older data, so this data is a little more refined to get a more precise outline of the watershed. The other portion of the watershed probably either drains straight to the ocean or out somewhere else.
Matt, the black lines are DEP, you said?
No, the red line
Red line DEP?
is DEPs. The black lines are what the model delineated.
Okay.
On the left side. Sorry, I should have clarified too. So
Okay.
on the left side. On the right side is I'm trying to highlight here what I developed in the first report I provided in the HMS report, where this area of the watershed had a proportionally more runoff than other areas, which were distinctly a lot of residential areas, which was interesting. And the other thing I'm highlighting here, I know, again, there's little orange dots that are really hard to see, but those represent the stormwater basins. Everything that was developed after 1984 required, a certain amount of stormwater management in terms of preventing flooding, right? But anything developed before that doesn't have those stormwater controls. So in here, again, I know it's hard to see, but basically, some of those subbasins have like one or two stormwater basins in there, so there's not a lot of management in those regions. Okay. So this next slide here is just showing the rain gauges and water meters that I ended up installing as part of monitoring for the project. So in order to calibrate the model, I needed some stream flow data and some rainfall data to put together for that. So this kind of shows the locations. So we try to distribute those throughout the watershed as much as possible. And these are just pictures of on the left is the stream gauge. So we have a gauge in the stream that's able to measure the elevation of the stream over time. We can combine that with stream flow measurements to figure out, if the stream is this high, how much water flows through it. And then on the right is our little rainfall gauge. So that measures how much rain we get during that same period, and we can put that data together to help calibrate this model. So here is just showing a general profile of the main part of the watershed, the main stream line of the watershed. So you can see, the drastic change in elevation that occurs, and then all the way at the bottom of the basin, it's relatively flat. So you can see the different bridges here I highlighted. I know the specifics are hard to see here, but I just wanted to show the general cross section. So
Matt, the middle road, was that the middle road bridge that you're showing there?
yes, so
okay.
that's the middle road bridge right there.
Okay.
So towards the lower end of the watershed. Okay, so as part of when we were originally brought into this project, we were discussing the flooding that was on Palmer Ave. So I wanted to just see how the model looked because the data in the model was before the road was raised. So I could use that to kind of get some anecdotal information of how well the model was working. So this is just kind of giving you an overview of that spot. And then here is kind of that same area showing, the area. This is during a 1-year storm, so about a 2-inch or so rainfall event. So you can see we got, we see that flooding over the road there is kind of what you see on the far right there. And then this is just a picture showing that same kind of flooding event, showing how that looked, and it kind of looks pretty similar to what's going on there. So it's just a way to help verify that the model is, showing what it should be showing. Okay, so this next slide is just an analysis that I did trying to pull in all the different bridges that are in the watershed that are part of the model. So everything that's in green here is, let me try to break it down here. So the columns here are the different storm events. So from left to right, an increasing intensity of storms. Everything in green represents a case where the bridge didn't overtop. So that's, the water's just going under the bridge. Anything that isn't in green means there's a certain amount of water overtop the bridge. So you can see here, I bolded the few. So Middle Road, CR7, and Palmer Ave all have frequent flooding because they have flooding during the one-year storm event. So a lot of flooding in those areas. So this is a way, you can look at all these spots in the model and say, all right, well, these are areas that are more vulnerable to flooding than other areas. So, okay. So then the next thing here is specifically Middle Road. So this is showing the actual floodplain area. So this is where water would, be during that storm event. So you can kind of see, you guys can't see my mouse, but where it kind of goes through the road right now, that's not actually the water going over the bridge. That's just water going through the bridge. It just has to do with the way the surface elevation model looks. So don't worry about that part right now. But this is during the one-year storm, so we don't really see any overtopping during that storm event. But anything more than that, we start seeing that water spread out into the road elevation. So you kind of see that spreading out. So this 2-year storm, 10-year storm, it's a lot worse. And then the 100-year storm, you have a huge event. And this event looks very similar to, I was shown a video of this area during Hurricane Ida, and this looks kind of similar to what that looked like then. So, and the amount of rainfall that we got during Ida was close to the 100-year storm. So it's a very intense storm. So again, more anecdotal, shows that the model is showing what we would expect it to show. Okay, so the bulk of this too is trying to answer this question of what actually causes this flooding. What can we do? We can now see where the flooding is occurring, but what is actually causing that, right? So there's a couple different things. So one is that ultimately it's just the sheer amount of volume of water that's flowing through the streams, and how quickly it's going through there. So when the stream can't hold the water, it backs up into the floodplains, and then eventually those floodplains reach places we don't want the water to be, right? Something else that can happen is that water downstream is restricting water from flowing. So this is where we kind of see the effects of like tidal influence, right? So when you have a higher tide, the water can't actually get out of the watershed because you have the tide holding it back. So that water will slowly back up the watershed to a certain extent. That's where we see those tidal influences. And then the last thing is that a bridge or obstruction is preventing flow. So, as may be the case in Middle Road or other bridges, maybe that opening isn't quite large enough to let the flow actually get through there, and then you cause a backup upstream that can be causing that to happen. Okay, so what can be, I know, a lot of discussion has been focused on the flooding at Middle Road. Right, so what can we do there and other places that this is happening, right? The first thing is to ask, what is actually the limiting factor? Is it the downstream effects, or is it the bridge itself, or is it something else? So I did some preliminary trying to look at this and to see if the tidal influence had a large impact, and I couldn't see one, so I don't think that is the reason. It probably has something more to do with the actual bridge opening. Right, but there's multiple ways to try to resolve these issues, right? So you can, we could just enlarge the opening at Middle Road and resolve it kind of directly to allow more flow through the bridge, so you're not seeing that flooding. But the other piece of this too is that these flooding events are occurring ultimately because of the poor implementation of stormwater management controls because of those regulations coming in at a later point in time, right? So everything built before then isn't managed. So there's thoughts of how can we go back into those areas, add these stormwater controls, so you're actually properly managing that instead, right? And that can be done through either small distributed practices like green infrastructure, things like rain gardens, or small stormwater basins, or larger scale solutions, large detention basins and things like that. So these are various possibilities. All right, so then the next steps. So I know recently Colliers was awarded a project to kind of map some of the sewer network outfalls and do additional modeling work. So I think everything I did here can be provided to them. Whatever they want, I'm willing to provide them. So hopefully they can kind of take what I'd done, enhance that, and combine it with all this other data they're collecting, which I think will be extremely helpful. Just being able to have a better sense of the actual sewer network and your outfalls and all that stuff is very helpful because, I didn't have access to that kind of data to work on the model. And that kind of data can be really useful just by looking at and examining all of this infrastructure. Sometimes there's some flooding is just caused because things aren't like fully cleaned out regularly or whatever. So there maybe just be pipes that are packed up. So by doing that kind of inventory, you can kind of figure out, what's actually causing flooding in certain locations. Yeah, and then, once you have this kind of refined model, you can use these models. So that's the other nice thing about having these models set up is that, now that you have it, you can, go and change something. Say you wanted to figure out if, changing the opening at Middle Road would resolve the problem, right? You can go in to the model, change that, and see what would happen, right? So that's the benefit of having these models, because they're useful tools to go back into and see what would happen when you change things. So, yeah, and then of course, as I kind of iterated before, it's important to think about integrated approaches that can provide multiple benefits, right? So that's why our program focuses a lot on green infrastructure, because we always like the idea of not just resolving flooding, but also resolving water quality issues. So by combining those together, you get a lot more benefits than maybe just resolving a flooding issue, right? So how can we approach those in a cost-effective way, right? So yeah, I think that's all I got. Any questions?
So, but anybody from the Township Committee have any questions for Matt?
Yes.
I have two different questions. The first is, it's my understanding that the old metrics of what's a 10-year, 100-year no longer stand because of changes in weather. Are these based on those old models, or could we expect that, what you're calling a 10-year thing may be happening every 2 years or 3 years? Or
Yeah, so that I didn't look at specifically. These numbers are based on the old numbers.
on the old numbers? Okay.
But DP just recently, I think within the past 6 months or something, released the new values that they're going to try to tell everyone to use. So those exist. So those are what.
So Colliers, when they update their thing, could put those numbers
Exactly.
in and give us
Updated.
more realistic based on the type of storms we've been seeing and are going to be seeing. Right?
Exactly. And that kind of stuff is really easy to do with models like this. You can easily just put in the new numbers and run it again.
Yeah.
So
Computers are good for something.
yes.
Yay.
Yes.
And then my other question is, can you give me an example of, other than just saying plant trees, what's
Yes.
a green infrastructure solution look like? I know what detention basins look like.
Right.
And one of our challenges is the upstream areas here to this problem are highly developed, right?
Yes.
So somebody isn't going to want us to go put a detention basin in their front yard.
Exactly.
But what are those green infrastructures look like, and are those more amenable to, relatively developed areas?
Right. So that's part of the benefit of green infrastructure projects is that they're kind of it's almost like a catch-all term, right? There's a broad amount of things that fall into that. So a lot of what we do is developing rain gardens. So these are like smaller scale basins. Essentially, it's the same idea as a detention basin, but on a much smaller scale. Maybe it's like 1,000 square feet or something. Something that you could implement on an individual property. Say every homeowner installed a rain garden, that would take away some of the stormwater going into the stream, right? So yeah, these projects can be in large scale, small scale. That's totally based on the available space and the parameters that you have to work with. So yeah, but we have things like rain gardens. We have things like porous pavements. So instead of using impermeable concrete or asphalt, you could use permeable versions of those that let water soak into the ground. Easy ways to kind of try to swap out, and they have their own challenges, of course, but everything has trade-offs. So
I have a question. So, did you do any simulation to say, okay, what if we put a detention basin upstream? How much would it reduce the flow, or what the impact would be further downstream?
Right.
And can you share some of that information with us?
So it was kind of like outside of the scope of what I had time to do realistically. But again, that's something that again, these models are nice because once you have them developed, it's easy to say, all right, what if I tried to put this element in here? What would it cause to the whole model, right?
Thank you.
Anything, Mark? So what I got when we had the environmental commission meeting is that one of your potential recommendations, right, is to remove any blockage. So if let's say if the bridge on Middle Road was widened or raised, right, to allow more flow, that's could potentially be something that's saving, right?
Yes.
Homes, businesses, etc., downstream from where that's going. So any change could have an impact, just like any change in a neighboring town building a development that takes down trees, adds more impervious coverage, is going to impact this, which could be one of the lower areas right there on the Holmdel side of Palmer Avenue.
Right. Yeah, I can elaborate a bit on that too, based on what I discussed last time. Right. So there is this whole aspect that stormwater is not it ignores township boundaries, right? So it's very important that when we're thinking about stormwater issues, to think about adjacent towns and how development in one town affects things in other towns. Assuming all the regulations are being followed, the idea is that new developments shouldn't worsen stormwater issues, but in practice that might not always be the case with variances and whatnot. But yeah, and then the other aspect is with Middle Road, say you increase the opening of the bridge, you want to be careful that doing that doesn't negatively impact someone downstream either, right? Because now you're allowing more flow to go downstream. So what impact will that have, right? So
I actually walked one of the properties over there by Palmer Middle Road with the previous administrator, and they were talking about how the stream back there has widened over the years, where it was more contained. And I think Ben, an engineer, probably maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when he was looking at the map and seeing, areas where the stream is now wasn't on a map that he had from previous, renderings. Right. So it's changing, right? There's more water coming down the stream. It's changing. It's widening. And one of the gentlemen who owned the property said, what land was usable now is not usable because of it's so wet, and it's wet all the time, and it kind of changes topography. So that being said, I know that one of the recommendations you made is as good as the effort we're making to try to help control some stormwater in Holmdel, we really need to kind of work with neighboring towns as well to try to get them to do similar type of projects, or at least look at the impact it's going to have, because what we're doing could impact them and vice versa.
Exactly. So.
Okay. If you don't mind, we have a small, take a couple questions if anybody from the audience has anything.
Of course.
So anybody from the public, come on, just free to say your name. He'll try to answer. He wasn't expecting to do questions tonight, but.
Barbara Singer, 5 Deerfield Road. I appreciate it. I'm like, so many questions, some of which you already went over. So I know when Rutgers was first contracted, I guess the collection of data was just your part of the project, and then the solutions is not part of what you were contracted for. So I get that. It also started your project before the road was raised. So is all this data now just after the road was raised?
So the data that I have here is from before the road was raised, because there's certain data sets that I had to use for the model, which only exists before that. So
Does the raising of the road change the usefulness of this data?
not too much, because when we're talking about what doesn't affect the HEC HMS model, so how much water runs off, it doesn't affect that. It only affects the hydraulic model. So basically, that section of the stream is a little bit different, because now instead of the water pulling into the road, now it's going, being limited by the road. It kind of acts like a little levee. So now that water will either back up to the other side of the stream, or it'll back up, upstream or downstream of that area. I don't think it would have too large of an impact, but again, that's something, you can go into the model and change those cross sections to show that being in there. So.
Okay. I'm just a little distracted because when we were talking about raising the road, I was up here saying that's going to push the water back into the, and the engineer was like, no, it's not. So anyway, common sense prevails. Because we're concerned obviously about the neighbors there. So that's how this all got started. Anyway, so I'm interested in you're saying how you can put data in the model, because I know the opening for the Middle Road Bridge had been expanded once before because of flooding issues, and obviously that wasn't enough. So it'd be great if the model can actually figure this out once and for all. I think also the importance of, we're saying, looking upstream, because it's not just about Middle Road. We know across 35 it's an issue, and then up toward Hazlitt it's an issue. And I just want to say, I think it'd be a great idea for the township to take on working with the homeowners to do these rain gardens in their homes. It's a really nice town project, and we've done some not we've, but the schools have done some that I wasn't involved in, but I've seen them. So it's kind of something the townspeople are already aware of. So that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ralph?
Ralph Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. More comment in response to Kathy's question as well as Prakash. The whole question of where there are larger open properties that one might be able to do something with, that's yet to be explored. I know this is a project's been going on for a while. A couple of years ago, as we got started with it, I had some interesting conversations with former engineer Bonnie Hurd about it. In older neighborhoods where you don't have the open space, what can you try to do? One mentions rain gardens, but a lot of these areas really are relatively wooded, don't have the open space. Moreover, you have to deal with homeowners and their behavior. There's a subdivision off of South Beers, North Beers, Silver Bell, that was done some years ago, where they attempted to include some of these more green type infrastructures, not have curbs so that you collect the water and have it rush down, but have to the side of the street on both sides swales, which can provide additional absorption capability. The homeowners all filled them in. And you talk about, say, dry wells for getting gutters in. Again, those have to continue to be maintained or they clog up and don't work. So you've got to also deal with the people factors, especially in the already developed areas, which are creating some of the flow going downstream. But certainly newer areas have to meet the newer state requirements, which should be better off. But we're dealing here in large measure with already developed areas, so it becomes much more difficult to find better solutions to absorb all this extra water. And, you know, this is just one step. We had, at the previous HEC meeting when Matt was present, we had people from Colliers, Ben, try to get all of the engineering folks together to try to continue these efforts and to come up with maybe some recommendations.
Thank you. Good. Jim.
Jenny Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. Will this presentation be put on the website so that folks can see these maps? Well, map is really extremely useful in telling you the story without waving your arms around a whole lot.
Yeah, it'll be on there, yep.
We received the paper report an hour ago.
Yes, I just published that.
Okay, good, because folks need to keep asking questions about this, and, you know, none of us can remember all the details that he's been working on for 3 years.
It's been great, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the public on WACAC? Yes?
Thank you, Mayor and Council, to speak. Let me speak. I'm Joe Tetro from 280 Middle Road. I'm where the problem is. Now, we keep talking about.
So Joe, you're kind on the map where Matt was showing you're closer
my
to the
little
bridge.
green spot, that's my house.
By the,
At the little island
Okay,
that's
okay.
there. All right. All that land behind me, I have 5 acres there. You know, we're speaking of Matt suggesting to widen the bridge. The bridge is quite wide in itself, but it's not clean. Now, even at the width of the bridge, if the stream down below was as wide as this, it would make a big difference. But once it comes out of the bridge, it narrows down to no more than 10, 12 feet wide. And then as it gets to the back of my house and winds around, the back of my yard where I used to maintain, you know, back in the 70s, I used to drag line and clean it all the time. The edge of my property, which now joins part of Holmdel and Hazlitt, that area, nothing is draining through there. My stream, today I walked there again today. I mean, back in '07, when T&M did engineering work, we were supposed to clean that all parallel with Hidden Pond, parallel with Palmer Avenue. That's the way the stream originally went back in the 60s and the 70s. Now it cuts all the way across towards Lee Acadia and Maria Court. The townhouses there have an outflow pipe which comes down into our land there, and now it backs up. These storms, these rains that we just had these last few weeks, we have water that lays by the bridge, Matt. Not by the bridge, by the edge of my property. That water only laid there on a good heavy rain. Now it lays there constantly, and the water is backing up to the back of my property. And when anytime we got 3 inches of rain, it came over the road. I always had gauges, I always checked this. And when I hear 2 or 3 inches of rain, I got sandbags in my back garage blocking it up, and the water comes in through the back. I got 3 pumps in my basement running constantly. You know, it's a matter of, I wish, Matt, you could just come down and walk my property, and you could see what, you keep saying that it's not affecting, but the water is being held up there. It's not draining right now. And I, as I mentioned at the last bridge, the last meeting, Middle Road Bridge, we had just under 3 inches of rain, and the water was being held by the bridge. I went on to Route 36 on the bridge over there, and you could just about stand under the bridge. There was so much room. I mean, I asked what was the elevations of the 2 bridges, but he didn't have that for it at the time. We had some, you said it was higher than Middle Road, of course, right? But there's blockage from my property down to 36. If we could only open that back up again and let all this water drain out, and then just keep the bridge at the opening that it's in, and I bet you that would serve a big problem right in itself. It has a good opening under the bridge. It's just so much silt is being gathered up in there, you can't get out of there. I mean, I've been trying to, so many years I've been trying to get the mosquito commission has come down, they've tried to clean some, but it's just too big for them now to go any further. Now it's involving Hazlitt down in there, their property and stuff. Of course, they don't do anything about it. There's all, right now I'm worried with all the new brush that's gonna grow with the leaves, because all the water is going through these little trees and down. There's no stream there for it to go anymore. And I used to clean whatever I can, and now I can't get down any further, even to clean out by hand. You know, now I'm just getting too old to do this anymore. But I just need help for somebody to pleased to try to open the stream the way it originally went.
So
I
that,
mean,
that,
we have the maps the way it used to go. I gave it to the Mosquito Commission.
yeah,
But-
so in order to do it properly, because digress for a second. So when the last storm hit, you sent the video, right, of the water around your house, correct? That was you
Yeah,
that
that
with
was
the video.
October 26th, I
Yep.
think that was.
Yeah,
that
yeah, in the
heavy
fall.
rain we had.
Yeah.
I wasn't even in the area. I was away at that time when my friend took those aerial photos of that with the drone. But
Yeah, so one of the reasons why the township committee took on the stormwater management study with Colliers that Matt alluded to was because of this, right? We really need someone to comprehensively look at the entire town, including the area where we are all aware of the issues that are on and continuing to potentially get worse, and how to potentially resolve it. And I think one thing that I learned from Matt's presentation, it's not just a Holmdel issue, right? It's larger, and it's probably going to
Yes.
involve the county, as well, with the bridges, roads, other waterways, Mosquito Commission potentially, I know was talked about. I am not an expert in this area. I'm slowly becoming one, but that's why I want Colliers to really come back after they do their due diligence study and be able to present to us of all their issues, kind of overlaying what probably a lot of what Matt said, but also come back with recommendations and remedies we could put in place to fix, remediate, et cetera, with the situations that you're dealing with. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm gonna have an answer that's gonna happen overnight. I think it's gonna take time for them to do their study.
I realize that it's been going on for so long. I know. It seems like before different administrations, and whenever we switch administrations, it just starts over again.
I know. I know. I know.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate you coming out. Thank you.
Greg, can I say something?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, first of all, I just want to acknowledge your frustration. I cannot imagine being in your situation and watching the water creeping up towards my house. It appears to me, and I was at the original presentation that you did from Rutgers, that this solution is going to have to be multifaceted, and that there is not one answer nor one quick fix. And so I think what we need to do is commit to finding that range of solutions that is going to improve the situation. And that may include, and again, I am not an engineer, nor a hydrologist, nor an environmentalist engineer or anything, but it's obvious to me that it may involve everything from us needing to incentivize homeowners to do the smaller rain garden type things, to working with the county and other towns for the major, dredging or bulldozing or whatever you have to do to try and clear things out, to looking at if and where we can put in any kind of additional detention, and or our other towns can do so. But I think it's what we need, and what I am finally hopeful for, is that with Colliers on the case now, and with the work that you've already provided them, that we can get such a comprehensive solution. Because I think in the past we've tried Band-Aids, which is typically the approach in this town, because we try to be very economically conservative, and I am fiscally conservative, but it's pretty obvious in this case that the Band-Aids aren't going to get it. So I'm looking forward to seeing the full-blown solution that, again, is going to take time to implement and won't happen overnight, but will hopefully get us where we need to go.
When is Colliers expected to provide us the recommendation?
I think we're anticipating roughly a year. Yeah. Committeeman, did you have anything? Committeeman, did you have anything? Okay.
Just briefly, I got the written final report from Matt at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Only started to look at it. I forwarded electronically, it came to HEC from Matt. I forwarded to Bonnie. Bonnie has it. She printed this for me so you can get the whole 60-page from and post it wherever you wish.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay. Anybody else from the public on the WACAC, Matt's presentation? Cool. Matt, I really appreciate you you coming out. Great presentation. Appreciate all your work and you know traveling down here to be with us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I'll roll to department updates. I'll go for 2 for 1. How about Administrator and Chief Financial Officer? At the bottom.
I'm gonna hold it. There we go. We got it. Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. I think everybody's happy. The county has fixed Holmdel Road at Van Brackle. That's been a mess for quite a while. Last week they fixed it, so everybody can be thankful their tires won't get ruined. Laurel Avenue Bridge, today we have on the website, we have a link posting to New Jersey Transit so you can see the up-to-date information. We also posted this afternoon the map, the detour map that brings everybody through Holmdel Township. I'm sorry, through Middletown Township, not through Holmdel. That map detour is on there. What else? Also, we're going out for the road, the 2021 road bid. That's going to be, bid openings on April 21st. The roads are under the department, if you go on the website, under departments, public works and road repaving. Again, you know, we have the proposed roads up there. Depending on what the bids come in at will depend on which roads we can do. If it comes in a little bit less, we can add a couple more. If it comes in, you know, higher than expected, we may have to take some off. Also, the firehouse, we're having a ribbon cutting on Thursday at 4 o'clock, and everybody's invited. And finally, the bond ordinances that were passed are now effective. We're going out and we're starting to get some prices. I will be filling the TC in on that because some of the prices since January are not the same as they were in January, obviously.
That's good.
So that could change some of our, you know, what we buy this year.
Good. Thank you,
And
Bill.
that's all I have.
Thank you. Counselor, any updates?
No updates, Mayor, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. I'm very happy to report that there is a ribbon cutting for the Holmdel Firehouse scheduled for this coming Thursday. So we're looking forward to that. Happy to get that project complete. We are also advancing our design on the improvements to Tacaloosa Drive, which includes the road between Telegraph Hill Road and Centerville Road. Repaving project that is utilizing an NJDOT municipal aid grant. So we're pushing that design and should be ready to advertise that one for bid in a few weeks. The improvements to the Mount Drive force main, that's the sanitary sewer force main. The plans and specifications are ready for bid. We are just waiting on a final approval from the DEP. That review has taken a long time. The state has been very slow for the last year and a half, as you can imagine. But we'll be ready to get that one out to bid as soon as we get that final approval. And with regards to the TABS bike route project, as you know, that's using a Monmouth County Open Space Grant. We've been reviewing the environmental impacts with that project. I had a meeting on site with Larry Fink, who's a former member of the Environmental Commission, to walk the whole trail, get his input, take a look at the existing conditions of what the hurdles might be. And some of the improvements that have already been made. So I know there have been some Eagle Scout projects and things like that have gone on there, and they've done a very nice job with that. Last thing is we have some crosswalk improvements that we've been working on with Victor Stevens, your Director of Infrastructure. We're going to be putting in some flashing pedestrian signs and new crosswalks. One crosswalk is already there at Newman Springs Road and Cross Road, and we'll be putting in those flashing signs. And then one also on Holmdel Road near the Indian Hill School. So with those plans are complete, have been submitted to the county for their review because those are both county roads. So once we get their approval, we'll get that into construction.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So, Ben, I just have one question. I remember some time back, residents were raising concerns about a crosswalk by Bellworks on Crawford's Corner. Is that in the pipeline? Is that something that's on your radar, or isn't that something that we need to discuss as the TC?
That's not in the pipeline right now. I know that has come up in the past. It was not part of the any of the previous phases of the Crawford's Corner Road project that were done. Partially because Crawford's Corner Road is a pretty busy road, and there's really not a lot of sidewalks in that area. So putting a crosswalk there at the time didn't really make much sense. That's certainly something that can be looked at in the future, and there may be a crosswalk on Crawford's Corner Road as part of the TABS Bikeway project. Probably not right at Roberts Road there. It'll probably be closer to the high school. But that's something that we're looking at.
So to follow up on what the committee may ask, so conceptually, right, one of the reasons why I was on the planning board when we required Bellworks to put in sidewalks from the building all the way out to Crawford's Corner. And one of the reasons why I moved the library from the basement here to Bellworks was to allow students after school to be able to, on a nice day like this, walk there, go in a group, work on their project, go get something to eat, and then get picked up later by the parents. So I think a crosswalk there is needed, and that should be included in our plans, because I want students to be able to walk and feel safe being able to cross that road, whatever we need to do, whether we need to put a light there or a signal or like a flashing like we did by Holmdel Road to warn people when they cross the road that the students crossing. I'm in favor of the TABS crossing over, going from the high school. We're working on that through Bellworks over to our parks, but I do think that is that's something that's going to be positive, and I think that if it's a safe environment, more parents will allow their children to do that walk. And because it is a busy road, so we need to somehow control the traffic and alert people that there are going to be pedestrians crossing there almost every day. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Good. Good.
So I just want to add the two crosswalks by Indian Hill and by Cross Farm and 520, Cross Road and 520 were initiated through the TABS committee. And those are existing crosswalks, but part of the problem is no one stops for the people in the crosswalks. And so now we're going to try the flashing lights. But the reality is, and you all know, and I may be stealing someone else's thunder, but the police department is doing a Hive project where they're trying to get drivers to slow down, and they're warning drivers to slow down. They actually did, the police traffic safety did a decoy project with the crosswalk by Cross Road, and nobody stopped. They kept pulling people over left and right. So part of what has to happen with this is it doesn't matter how many crosswalks we put in and or how many flashing lights. I mean, that might help some, but we really have to focus on driver education and in terms of people slowing down, looking out, and expecting to see bikes and pedestrians, not taking the attitude of, I have the car, get out of my way, right? And so that police department is working on that now, but we need everybody to help do their part. The crosswalk lights, just to give you some idea, we started talking about this a year ago. And it's going to take how many more months, Ben? Probably 3, 4?
That's possible. It depends on how long the county takes to review.
So these are not simple or easy things to do, particularly when you have to coordinate with the county, because I know everyone just wants us to go like this and make it all better. So I just wanted to share that because we've discussed it at length at the TABS meetings.
Thank you. Appreciate the update, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you. And just so everyone's aware too, with regard to those flashing signs, we're not talking about the beacons that have the double yellow lights that are on all the time. These are the signs that are solar powered, and actually the perimeter of the sign flashes, which is actually more effective because you can push the button. It's not flashing all the time where people get used to it and just ignore it. It's when somebody's there and pushes the button, it starts flashing, and that will alert the drivers.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll do boards and committee updates. Committeeman Improviduto.
For community development, there are some website updates. It includes items that were previously printed and had to be picked up at the community development office, like handouts, checklists, and explanatory materials. The home repair program. They created a new subpage to highlight Monmouth County's home repair program, including the link to get to the county. Through this program, assistance is provided to applicants who meet the Department of Housing and Urban Development mandated low and moderate income standards to complete necessary repair work on their homes. We have ordinance updates and revisions. The office has begun working on ordinance revisions and updates to better address the way that community development operates. And we have business registrations, instituted a new program to canvass local businesses to ensure that all established businesses are registered with the Bureau of Fire Prevention.
Thank you. Committeeman Lucrelli.
Thank you. I got a few things here. Just for a quick update with Public Works, we do have our paper shredding event this Saturday at Bell Works from 9 to 1. Brush and leaf collection, the schedule has been posted, so please check out on our website, and it'll schedule your section in town. Our first large item drop-off of the season was completed, and it was a huge success. That was on the 23rd. Oh, wait, no. The next one is on the 23rd. I apologize. And what else do I have? Oh, I haven't been here for a while, so I attended the community cleanup day with some other members, and that was a great day. Just wanted to give kudos. I thought it was a great community event. Something else I did on Thursday, last month, the 31st, I attended a municipal elected officials workshop hosted by Monmouth County, and it was very interesting. I feel like I learned a lot. I think I have my MBA now in municipal government, but we just a few things that we went over was Daniel's Law, shared services, the Improvement Authority, municipal bonds, ethics and local government, open space grants. They discussed the Office of Emergency Management, early voting, in-person voting, et cetera. And there's one project, this digital tax map project that the county is doing. I don't know if we're aware of that. We already did it. It's already done. Yeah. So that was a pretty interesting thing. And that is it. And then, yeah, that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. Committeewoman Weber.
Do you want to give the details on the mayor's community cleanup day? Because I have the numbers.
Go ahead.
All right. So I was not there, but thank you to Committeeman Lucrelli and Deputy Mayor Santana and Mayor Bontempo who were. There were over 150 volunteers who came out to clean up multiple areas all over the town, and over 2,200 pounds of debris was collected, which included a window, several tires, a bunch of metal, and some other interesting things, which they may be able to fill you in on. We also had our very successful Hippity Hop Easter egg hunt, which was sold out again, and was great to see everybody on there, and they may add some more on that. My favorite, swim club registration is open. This is a great year to join the swim club because we're beginning some of the improvements to the club. You might not see them all because a lot of them are infrastructure, and some of them will take into the following year. But I highly encourage that. And fees, the early bird registration fee ends. So you need to register before May 2nd to get the best deal. Summer camp registration is also open, and that starts June 27th. And the sports tiles on Ackerson Park basketball court is scheduled to take place this week. Earth Day is going to be May 1st at Bayonet Farm. And I was actually over there a couple days ago at lunch just for a walk. It was such a beautiful day. And just a reminder that our parks are all open, and with the better weather, there will be more children and adults in all of the parks. So just like in the roads, please slow down on the parks. I was a little taken aback, and we may want to alert the police department that cars entering Bayonet Farm were driving extremely fast to get to the dog park because they had, the dog park entrance was closed, so they're coming up the main. And we may need to post some slow down, 5 mile an hour. I mean, they think they're still on the highway and going 25, 30 miles an hour, which does not work on those little dirt roads. So everybody just keep your head up and enjoy our beautiful parks.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So what surprised me about the Community Day event was I was cleaning up by Reminiscent Trail, and the garbage that we picked up from the trail, the stuff that goes into our reservoir was just unbelievable. All kinds of stuff, not just beer bottles, but oil, cans, all kinds of stuff. So I don't know who does it, but I hope people would volunteer every year to clean that up, because it's our drinking water and it's getting polluted. Anyway, so here are the public safety updates. As Bill mentioned, Laurel Avenue will be closed between April 18th and at least through May 26th. As Bill mentioned, the detour maps are available on the township's website. April 10th through the 16th is National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. So I'd like to personally thank our dispatchers who provide emergency communications to our township 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And our dispatchers are part of the Communications Bureau of the Holmdel Township Police Department, headed by Lieutenant Jeff Ackerson. And they all serve in all 4 branches of emergency services in Holmdel. The Holmdel Township Police Department has begun high visibility enforcement deployments around the township. There are specific areas and roadways where speeding and other enforcement efforts will be taking place. The police department will be sharing the results of these deployments on a weekly basis in an effort to inform the public and help reduce the risk of collisions, increase awareness, and improve communications between law enforcement and the public. Regarding the firehouse, as Bill mentioned, and as Ben mentioned as well, the 14th we'll have the official ribbon cutting ceremony, but also on the 30th of April, on Saturday, Holmdel Fire and Rescue Company 2 will be hosting its dedication of the new fire station, along with a wet down ceremony for the new fire truck and a celebration for the public. All are invited to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have a few updates. So the first is regarding the Ukraine aid drive and the governor's visit. I want to thank all the residents, neighbors, and community partners who donate to the Ukraine aid drive that we held here last month. All told, we're able to collect over 2,185 pounds of critically needed supplies, which included, I have to thank our DPW guys because they did a great job in consolidating all these supplies and also running up some numbers. So we collect over 38,000 bandages, 9,000 pairs of gloves, 1,000 bottles of over-the-counter pain reliever, ibuprofen, Advil, over 200 backpacks, 150 pounds of medical petroleum gel. Included along with supplies were dozens of handmade cards from Holmdel Public School students, including several that had been translated into Ukrainian. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy heard about the work that Holmdel did and surprised us with a visit to Town Hall to review the last of boxes being packed in the truck and meet the DPW staff who were involved in sorting and packing those items for us. Special thanks to Hunter Smith and Ed Daly from the Department of Public Works for their sorting, packing, and delivering of all the donated items over to the shipping company. I'd like to also thank the staff at Bell Works, Bayshore Medical Center, who set up donation bins in their buildings for us, the students at Holmdel Public Schools and their families. The cards I thought were just a very nice personal touch when the box arrived in Ukraine, of having a message of hope and for peace from a lot of our children. Ralph Zucker, CEO of Somerset Development, who made a generous donation to help defray the cost of the shipping of all these items, over a ton of medical supplies to the much needed soldiers and families over in Ukraine. The fire station ribbon cutting, you heard that 3 times over, so I'll skip that. So in the fall, we had a very successful visit from the Motor Vehicle Commission. We had their mobile unit here at the community center, and I'll tell you, it was remarkable. You had to pre-register to get a time slot, but they're able to do everything from getting your driver's license renewed to getting your inspection renewed. It was amazing. So we're able to get them back. So they were here in November. They're making a visit on Thursday, May 26th. They'll be here from 10 to 2 in the Senior Community Center. Pre-registration is required. A link to register will be posted this week on our website. You'll see a social media. We'll emailed out via Notify Me. Priority to be given to the first senior citizens who register. We're able to handle more than that during the November visit. So get in, register. It was after the first 40 register, the motor vehicle will keep a wait list for additional residents to be served, and they're able to go through the list pretty quickly in November and still have time for other people that they're able to add in that day. Some of the services included driver's license renewals, registration renewals, veteran, handicap, Purple Heart placards, permits, non-driver IDs. Residents can also drop off their old license plates and get a receipt from them. A limited number of people are able to get their real ID driver's licenses because they're going to be required for traveling on planes in the near future. There's a limit to the first 12 individuals for real IDs. This is a limitation from the motor vehicle unit, not from Holmdel. We are just a middleman, hosting it in our town for our Holmdel residents. Again, it's only going to be done between the hours of, for the real ID, between 10 and noon on that day, although they'll be here from 10 to 2, but real IDs will only be able to be available from 10 to 12. Customer fulfilled services will need to have their 6 points of ID. They must bring their social security card as well. Couple other quick items. HYAA is going to be running an opening baseball day. I believe it's set for May 7th. They're working with our recreation department for Cross Farms Park to reinitiate the parade. They're going to have some food vendors there, some bouncy hut type games for the kids. So for more information from that, our rec department is not running it, but your ice cream, but it will be hosting it. And then there was we sent out information through our public information officer. There was a cemetery cleanup. I thought you were going to cover that last Saturday, where they had volunteers go out to, I believe, 2 of the older cemeteries in town to do some cleanup work, and they had a very nice turnout. And I know the Holmdel Historical Society was involved in that with the volunteers that came out as well. So there's been a lot of positive effort in town, cleaning things up, trying to beautify things. I think the deputy mayor kind of said it correctly when we were out and about for many hours on Saturday, and I could tell you that the team I was with were picking up tires, parts of old tractors, lawnmowers that were kind of buried and thrown into the woods, bed frames. The list was on and on. It was kind of disturbing, but it was nice. We had a really great group of volunteers. Having that turnout, I think the committeeman said was a really remarkable day. So it was well attended, and we did a great job cleaning up keeping our town as beautiful as it was before this garbage was dumped on. So thank you for all who participated in all of those events. That's it from my updates. If nothing else being said, I'll roll to public comment. Wendy?
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, this is a public comment period for public comment on any governmental issue of public concern. In accordance with Resolution 2022-17, public commenters are asked to raise their hand and wait to be recognized by the mayor before coming forward and making public comments. Commenters are asked to state their full name and address before commenting. Public commenters are limited to one comment, not to exceed 3 minutes. Comments should be directed to the mayor and township committee. If appropriate, the mayor may direct and recognize a staff employee or professional to respond to comments either at this meeting or in writing after this meeting.
Thank you, Wendy. Anybody from public? Ralph?
Yeah, Ralph Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. I'll call this 2 comments with regard to roads, although the second one you make, it's not quite a road. One of the projects has been the Crawford's Corner Road, and I believe the most recent phase was just completed. I'm not sure how far down all this goes, but the other day when I was here, right in front here, Crawford's Corner is getting a lot of potholes already. And that, I don't know if that was phase 1 or what, how often you cycle back, but I think you need to look at that. The other one is Kathy's comment about Bayonet Farm. I think part of the problem is the way that the roads, which aren't really roads, they're gravel driveways, there are laid out. Since the back entrance or exit by the Swanson house is closed off, people come in the main entrance, then the road going around to the dog park past the red and gray barns is one lane. And so people come speeding in the other direction, and there's a conflict there. So I'm not sure what should be done about the traffic safety people may need to look at how that's handled, the signs that are there as to how to get from the entrance to the dog park. Hopefully there hasn't been any accidents yet, but I think the situation needs some attention.
Could I make a comment? So I go there every day because I take my dog to the dog park. And most people are very careful. They drive slowly. But there are 1 or 2 elements that don't care. They think that they're on a speeding track and they drive. So that's the unfortunate thing, is that 1 or 2 bad apples that cause this issue. So we've got to keep an eye out and do what we can.
Yeah, I just have a comment. Do you know why that where the old Swanson house is, do you know why that's closed off? I mean, I'll speak to Victor, but is there a way that we can enter there?
I think it was mud, because the dog park itself was closed for quite some time because of the rain and the mud.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, but-
actually better with that road being closed because people are not driving fast on that lane and this road.
I think
So-
it's more of a where you can enter and then exit instead of having like what Ralph is saying, it's a single driveway, and you start overusing that with two-way traffic, and it could be an issue.
If you have a sign there, otherwise people are using it both ways on either road, so.
Well, then maybe
Anyway,
that it can
somebody's gotta
alleviate.
look at it.
Yeah, I'll speak to Victor about it.
All right, thank you. Anybody else in the public? Yes.
Chris Damari, Seven Oaks. Mayor, I came here tonight to get some transparency for Holmdel residents that are being misled online regarding this charter study. Please let us know if you're currently involved in any capacity with the Holmdel Republican Club and the Holmdel Republican Party Facebook pages. I reached out to the Holmdel Republican County Committee, and they confirmed these are no longer their pages that represent local Republicans. The person operating these pages is a Hazlet resident and your past campaign treasurer. It's confusing why somebody not living in Holmdel is putting in so much time and energy into promoting Holmdel's charter study, being deceitful and misleading Holmdel voters into thinking the Republican Party supports this charter study and changing our local government. The two other Republicans here, I saw an article from September 21. Committeeman Impreveduto explained why he was voting no to the Charter Study Commission. He was clear, And this year, Committeeman Lucarelli put out a statement that said he was duped and does not support this. So we would like to know if you were involved in these pages and where this is coming from. These pages are putting out misinformation, such as one post saying if you're going to take anything from the charter study, it is that there's an immense political power of county party chairmen. They are the sole decider of who gets endorsement of the party line. Shouldn't the people decide? This is not true. There's actually a Holmdel County committee made up of 20 people elected by residents from every district in town that is responsible for this. So we just would like transparency on that. Mayor, at the last town council meeting, I asked questions around lack of direct communications to Holmdel residents on this charter study. My questions went unanswered, and there's still not one correspondence from you on this. Holmdel voters have supported you and elected you for a very large number of years to be on this township committee, many designated as mayor. As a charter study guest, you raved about how well our town is run and other municipalities use Holmdel as a model. Holmdel residents, I know I want to trust the elected officials that we elect to do the right thing, especially during a pandemic. Although what has transpired with this charter study seems to be very wrong. Please do the right thing moving forward by putting your personal and political agendas aside and shift your focus to do what is best for all Holmdel residents by putting Holmdel first. And my second question is, and I've asked this to Prakash at an earlier town council committee meeting, is it concerning for any of you up there, but I directed at the mayor who put this forth, that the majority, an extremely large number of Holmdel residents are uninformed on anything related to this charter study? And how can you, as our leader, protect Holmdel's integrity and our legacy by getting people involved so this becomes a true measure of what Holmdel really wants for Holmdel? This is very important. This is a very major thing to change our local government. And we need to work together to get our residents involved because nobody knows what's going on to make an informed decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a quick comment? So, you said the majority of the voters are not informed? Yes. Please sit down. I'm going to talk to you.
Don't say something that you're not going to let me respond to.
No. But I'm just saying that I've been going around town just to hear what people have to say, and I'm surprised that a lot of people know what the charter study is, and they don't have any issues with it. I've been very surprised. I just want to inform you.
Please not from the public. You had your chance. Anybody else in the public?
I'm going to jump in on this really quickly, guys. In the interest of remaining collegial with my partners up here, I've abstained from publicly saying anything in relation to this charter study. My position is well known on this. I spoke up about it 8 months ago. But the chairman of the charter study felt compelled to bring my name up last week in his meeting, and I think I'm going to address that and as well as a few other things here. Kinji, the chairman of the charter study, made some kind of comment that I was a candidate and I should have run people against the people running for the charter committee. If I trust my government is operating with openness and transparency and integrity, why would I feel compelled to run anybody against the people that are up there and petitioning to be on the ballot? What he's really doing is blaming the victims, right? He's turning around and saying, you knew we were going to pull something off and you didn't come get it. That's what's happening, right? And I think it's ludicrous, and I think it's disgusting, and I think it's deceitful, and I'm sad for our town that we're going through this. I also want to refute some of the narratives that are spinning around here. There's people that turn around and they say, we have to do this. We had a bad mayor who did bad things. One in our 165-year history. But they're going to turn around and recommend a form of government that empowers the mayor. That's a conflict that I don't quite understand. Further to that, there's a narrative being spun about party bosses, as Christian just mentioned. There's one individual in this town who's helped get 3 township committee members elected, 3 Board of Education members elected, and I could argue probably wields influence over a 4th, has 2 Holmdel digital properties, has a digital agency to help candidates, and launched a political action committee whose designated purpose is to move municipalities to nonpartisan government. That's also the gentleman who's the chairman of the Holmdel Charter Committee. That's a hell of a lot of power for one person to have in this town. You could argue he has, to use an old term, half of our elected officials on speed dial, and he's got a political action committee, and 2 digital properties, and a digital agency, and he's tasked with changing our form of government. That's a party boss. That's someone who wields unbelievable control over our town. And so I think this was an initiative, frankly, born in darkness. I think it's one that grew in deceit. And I think now that residents are shining a light on it, you're seeing some of the fractures in the effort. And I've gone from saddened to enraged to frustrated to, in some ways, baffled. How many times does someone have to say this is a great town and we don't need to change anything, including our mayor, but yet people turn around and say, but we got to change the government. It just, none of it connects for me. The logic doesn't follow. It doesn't track. So, the fact of the matter is, well, let's say it this way. I'm going to give a spoiler alert. My belief is that the recommendation is going to be to elect the mayor directly, to give the mayor more power than he or she currently has, and to move to nonpartisan elections. And I know this because I haven't heard one person on the charter committee advocate for our current form of government. I know this because Mr. G registered a political action committee to move towns to nonpartisan elections, and we know the mayor is an advocate for direct electing the mayor, which would increase his power. So, and I believe that this was in the books 6 months ago. And whenever they make the recommendation, it's already been written. So I was staying on the sidelines on this, but they pulled me into it. And so now I'm not. And so I want to thank the residents that have stepped up here. I think more need to be informed. And if an informed populace votes in favor of this, despite the way in which we got here, if they don't believe the journey matters, just the destination, then so be it. But this thing didn't pass overwhelmingly. It was 52, 48, 53, 47, 300 votes. And I tend to believe that of those 3,200 that went in favor, the majority didn't know they were being deceived. So that's my position on that, and I'm going to step back from it now. But I guess I'm listening to my lesser angels today. My mother always said, consider the source when people speak, and I typically do, and I typically don't respond to deceitful people and their accusations and their nonsense. But I couldn't help it today. So.
Yeah, I don't. This process was created by the legislature, and I like the idea, although I said last time that it was not my idea to come up with having the residents direct elect the mayor. My view is, no matter who it is, I think the residents should have a say in who sits up here as mayor, not the 5, the entire town. I guess I've been sitting here long enough to have seen backroom deals and negotiations go on that put personal preferences ahead of the residents of the town. I've seen it firsthand. And if the residents want to continue that way, it's their vote that can keep it that way. I want to give people the chance to have an option to look at a potential alternative. I don't know what the decision is going to be. I said, and I was pretty clear, that if it's direct elected mayor, and I didn't say a strong mayor, I never said that I would support it. But I want the residents to decide who sits up here and who runs the town, because I think the town is smart enough, people are involved enough to see what's going on and see the corruption that's gone on for years up here. So bad that the prosecutor's office had to get involved and do an investigation. Pretty disturbing when you get called in to get highlighted a summary of what went on, unbeknownst to you, when I'm sitting up here and should be aware of things going on. So the reason I said that things are running smoothly is because the addition of Kathy and Prakash have created an environment where we've gotten a lot done. If you follow the last 2+ years, got a lot done in this town. And they don't have an agenda of doing anything else but trying to do what's best for the town. I'm not saying anybody doesn't, but I can tell you that I want the people to have the option to decide how they want their government to run. End of the day, that's what it's about. It's no more sophisticated than that. Barbara, do you have a question?
Barbara Singer, 5 Deerfield Road. Not really a question, but once again up here because I like to shed light and find some facts when we're all speaking. So I'm just going to go through and don't throw me off. Let's see. So I'd like to know where the from the last speaker, where the survey was on the town that determined this vast majority of people were against this commission. Nothing has come by me in my social media asking for my vote, so I think that's just who you're surrounding yourself with and who you're asking, as opposed to maybe people up here in the committee or people who are involved in other aspects of the town who are talking to a wide variety of people in other groups in town. So that's one thing. Another fact, nobody on the commission has talked about having a strong mayor. That's something that's been around on social media, but really in speaking with people, even speakers who have been up here, they've not I've not really heard anyone who's said they have been in favor of that. So that's also something I feel is just like a rumor that's been going around. I'm not sure who has said they want a strong mayor. I don't know if you have names.
If I'm just
Let her talk.
That, there was like 3 things you said I was going to address. This political action committee. So often when corporations have to organize or PACs, they have a stated purpose in their documentation. So if you have something showing that was their purpose, was to have towns do this, I'd love to see it. You could email me.
I'll send you the email. Actually, I'll send you a screenshot.
Yeah, okay, I'd like to see that. And I think that was it.
So, Barbara, just my perspective, right, based on the mayor council, and I can't remember the other sort of flip-flop form of government, right, is that when you elect the mayor directly and you assign them to a 4-year term, one of them is a little more innocuous. It gives the mayor a little more power, but there's also the opportunity to increase that power over time through referendums and other options, and other areas, right? In addition to that, you know, what we've seen and what I've seen from the Charter Committee interviewing people is that they're interviewing mayors that have been up there for quite some time in a form of government where you direct elect the mayor. And part of the reason behind that is when you're sitting in that seat, right, there's a lot more opportunity to consolidate your power base, raise more money, establish yourself, and just be much more difficult to overtake over time. So, you know, whether it's direct power in the form of what they can do wielding, you know, within the actual government, or just the power of, you know, accumulating brand and power and strength in that way, it strengthens that position overwhelmingly. And again, some of the positions against this that have spoken against this, and Mayor Bontempo even alluded to it, very simply was that, well, we don't trust some of the former mayors that were here. If that's an issue, right, then why establish that type of form of government? Why establish that approach?
So I know this is not a debate. I don't want to be argumentative, but I think establishing brand as a mayor has been done around here with this form of government anyway. And one thing I think we all learned at the last commission meeting was they choose the form of government, and this is something we need to get out of this commission more, because after they make that general choice, there's a lot of specifics. I don't know, Mr. Collins, if you're following it, but as an attorney, there's a lot of specifics within that actually will be left up to our township committee to determine. So that's something I feel hasn't come out yet in the hearings that I do hope we will all be listening to a little more, because sometimes the devil is in the details, and I agree with you there.
And Barbara, I do want to say publicly, I think you're probably the only honest broker in this whole thing, because I know this has been something you've been interested in for quite some time. We happen to disagree, but I respect your opinion, because I think you've been very consistent in this for a long time.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Go ahead, yep.
Mr.
I'm
Mayor.
just going to clarify one thing from the last statement. The Township Committee does not have any legal role in the process. Ever since it did the ordinance establishing the Charter Commission, it put the referendum on the ballot, it passed, so the Charter Commission has its 9 months to do its thing. Their recommendation, if they make one, is going to contain all of the relevant criteria, form of government, structure, and then that would be placed directly on the ballot. They literally hand a report to the municipal clerk. The municipal clerk causes that to be placed on the ballot. So the township committee doesn't have any role in it. And beyond that, I'm really not looking to get into the legal specifics because there's plenty of them for the Charter Commission's attorney to address. But the one thing for us here is that the township committee does not have any role in the process. Okay, I'm not saying you're saying. I just want to clear the record up so people don't feel that there's a role here.
Yes, I'd just like to say something. I too have remained silent on this issue from the dais because this Charter Study Commission was voted on and approved by 52% of the voters. And I believe there is nothing more significant in our electoral process than the will of the voters and the democratic process, and I stand behind that. I'm the only elected member of this township committee who is beholden to no one. I ran my own campaign, despite what rumors may say otherwise, based on my years of experience and advocacy in this town and recruiting volunteers and making something happen. And it happened because I rang every damn doorbell in Holmdel and read and wrote every piece of literature that I put out without a political action committee, without flyers that came against me, slurring me, saying, misleading and untrue statements. I have never maligned an opponent. I have always ran an above board process. And to me, this Charter Study Commission is just that. It is a process to look at things. We have no recommendations now. Personally, I'm ambivalent about the mayor. I don't like power, period. I don't like the power of the party politics in this town. I don't like power and money and ego at all. I am a volunteer through and through. I'm also the only one up here who takes no salary for this position. 2 months into the pandemic, I gave up my salary because I wanted to make it clear that I was doing this for Holmdel and the residents of Holmdel. And the residents of Holmdel have voted for the commission. It is now incumbent upon the commission to make a set of recommendations. I don't know what those will be. Personally, the one that I would favor would be nonpartisan elections, because the bar for me to win, as someone who's been a Republican in this town but didn't play the party politics, was extremely high. I ran as an independent, and it was blood, sweat, and tears from not only me, but from the significant volunteers that made that happen. And our system does not allow people who are just volunteers and committed to this town, who do not have a big stake in a party politics, to do just that. And you can say, well, you did it. That was a one-off in an extreme set of circumstances that happened to all come together. And that's what it was. So I welcome the findings from the Charter Study Commission. I can't tell you how I'm going to vote on them yet because I don't know what they are. And I'm going to trust the process, and we will see what happens.
Just really quickly, to make sure we have clarification here, there are only two, I guess, I don't know how you want to say it, endorsed Republicans up here. We're actually in the minority. So the process in that regard works, right? And the other thing I would say also is that I donate my compensation. I don't take a salary necessarily either. I give it away. And the only other piece to that, by the way, I think where we're in agreement is that I don't like power either. And I think if you work hard enough and you're a good candidate with the right intentions, I think you'll do just fine in this town. I do want to ask for clarification, because if I got this wrong, I'd like to apologize. The Two River Times did identify Kin G as, I believed it was both yours and Prakash's campaign manager. Perhaps it was only yours, Prakash?
He was not my campaign manager. I was my campaign manager.
Okay, so
and
that
I
was just
clearly know how to run campaigns because I've done it before.
You guys should take it up with the Two River Times then. That was in the paper.
I don't care what they write. I have to explain something. This is plain and simple. We were independents, and we ran as independents. We didn't have an agenda. We didn't have political backing. And we ran with the support of the town, period. That's simple as that. And others may have been advisors and provided information, shared their thoughts, but we ran as independents. That's number one. Number two, with respect to this whole charter commission process, I'll explain how it happened for me. So usually you should understand the way the process works. The mayor sets the agenda, and we get the agenda before the meeting. It's our responsibility to do the due diligence on every item in the agenda. And what do? Like today, like every day, like when the ordinance showed up, I called our professionals to understand what was behind the ordinance. Because oftentimes I don't know what the ordinance is about. I see it on the agenda, but I have to get up to speed before the meeting to vote on it. So I called and I understood what it was about. And it was about a study to figure out what the right form of government was or should be. And we wanted to understand. And then my immediate question was, what are the different types of government? So I was referred to the Faulkner Act. So I went and read the Faulkner Act. And then I understood there are different forms of government. This was supposed to be a study to figure out what we need to have. So in my mind, it was a study that needs to happen. And that means, and even for that to happen, the voters need to vote. So there was nothing behind it other than saying, sure, go ahead with the study. Let's go ahead and figure out if the voters decide, let's have a study. And even after the study is completed, when they come out with a recommendation, we can't accept it. It has to again get back on the ballot. So there are safeguards on the front end and the back end. So I didn't see it as an issue at all. And therefore I said, okay, fine. After listening to the professionals, after doing my own research, I said that's a good thing to do. So I don't see why this big hullabaloo right now when the voters have, and as I said, I walk around town, I ask people, they understand it. So I don't understand why this is an issue now. I mean, to your point, Rocco, I understand what you're saying, only 52%. Remember, that's only 300 votes, but I'm sitting here because of one vote. So to make matters clear, a win is a win, one vote is a vote. So let's just see how the process works. Let the people decide. The people have already decided, so you can't go back and change that for the study. It's going to get on the ballot, whatever information they come back with, and let the people decide it, and let it go from there.
Hey, listen, the will of the people is paramount. I agree with both of you on that. I think what's also paramount is an informed electorate. And I think there was a lot of effort made to get people to vote for something without informing them. And I think that's where a lot of this is getting lost on folks. That's my opinion based on what I saw. And you guys have run campaigns. The investment made, I mean, was massive.
No, you know funny ones. You talk to me after our next meeting.
Ron Emma, 32 Ladwood Drive. I don't know where to start, actually. But first, let me just say that I may be a supporter of Mayor Bontempo, or I may not be a supporter of Mayor Bontempo. I think the narrative that you're hearing, you keep hearing the word strong mayor as if Mayor Bontempo is making a power play here and he wants to be a dictator and he wants to just run this town. Let me remind everybody, no recommendations have been made yet. It's a study. One, and I have been following it quite closely. I've listened to every meeting and been at every meeting. One of the recommendations is for council manager form of government, which 5 members, 7 members, or 9 members, I may have the numbers wrong, with the mayor being directly voted on. There is something called a strong mayor, which is directly voted on and has more power. There is also something called a weak mayor, which would be exactly what we have here with 5 members and a directly elected mayor who would serve on the town council, who would have no more power than any one of you up there right now. It's the only difference would be he's directly elected by the electorate. That would be what I would be in favor for on a nonpartisan basis, because I know firsthand from a partisan point of view what the power of the line means, obviously. Secondly, as far as Kinji is concerned, I wonder what, Rocco, if you've talked to any residents along the power lines that run through Hazlitt, Holmdel, and Middletown, what they think of Mr. G as far as what he was able to accomplish with Rage. I personally think this town needs more people like Kinji, not less. I look forward to their recommendations. I really, really appreciate the time and effort they put in to do their studies. I think it's been a comprehensive study, and I look forward to their recommendations. But more importantly, I look forward to the voters of Holmdel having their say in what form of government we go forward with. Thank you very much.
Ron, I'm sorry, really quickly.
Thank you.
In the interest of openness and transparency,
Yes.
what digital agency did you use when you ran last spring?
If you're asking me if Kinji was my campaign manager, I would say yes, and I think did a fantastic job. Obviously not a good enough job because I'm not sitting up there. So I don't know the name of it. I don't know the name of the actual
listen,
digital agency, if that's what you're referring to.
it was Savant
But if you're
Services,
asking
that's
me
his
if he
agency.
is a kingmaker or an emperor, I would say you might think he is. He wasn't good enough for me, actually.
Well, I just think it's important, right? And you are entitled to your opinion as a taxpayer. I do think it's important that when you stand up there as an advocate of him, that you acknowledge
Guys,
the fact you have a relationship.
this is a public comment. It's not a question and answer period.
Thank you.
Rest in public, yes, in the back.
Rob Purcell, 18 Red Coach Lane. All right, Deputy Mayor, I heard you say that you spoke to many people that said that they were for the study. Well, I've been around trying to get petitions signed, and I spoke to about 150 of them that didn't even know about it. Okay, basically, I don't know where you're getting your information from. Okay, and I'm new to this business, and everyone I spoke to in my neighborhood and other neighborhoods that I walk every day don't have a clue what's going on about this study. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Seeing none, I will close public comment, just making sure. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second.
All in favor? Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for coming out.